Before we dive into a world of danger, passion, and unforgiving loyalty, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss a single twist and turn in this epic tale. The city of Chicago, a sprawling beast of steel and concrete, hummed with a restless, almost frenetic energy that pulsed relentlessly through its veins, a ceaseless, urban symphony of sirens wailing in the distance, the unending drone of traffic, and the low, collective thrum of humanity. Underneath the dazzling, kaleidoscopic neon signs that painted the night sky in garish hues of red, blue, and gold, and the relentless, intoxicating rhythm of its vibrant, clandestine nightlife, a different, darker kind of power thrived, one that moved in the deepest, most impenetrable shadows, dictated by whispered commands, sealed with ancient blood oaths, and enforced with the cold, unyielding glint of steel. Elena Petrova knew this world intimately, a dark, intricate tapestry woven into the very fabric of her existence, stretching back generations. Though she tried desperately, with every fiber of her being, to distance herself from its brutal, unforgiving realities, her father, Mikhail Petrova, a man whose name was a legend in certain shadowy circles, whispered with a mixture of fear and grudging respect, had, for a time, ensured her childhood was cloaked in a fragile, meticulously constructed illusion of normalcy. A carefully built bubble of ballet lessons, classical music concerts, and fervent academic pursuits. But the truth, like a persistent, indelible stain, always found a way to bleed through. Occasionally in hushed, coded phone calls, sometimes in the fleeting shadows of unfamiliar, menacing men at their doorstep, and always in the subtle, pervasive tension that permeated their lives, a constant undertone of danger. Tonight, however, the illusion shattered completely, irrevocably, leaving her exposed to the raw, terrifying truth. The air in the cramped, grimy back alley, a forgotten crevice between two imposing brick buildings, reeked overpoweringly of stale beer, damp, rotting garbage, and the potent, unmistakable stench of raw, animalistic fear. Rain, a relentless, icy drizzle, slicked the pitted bricks, transforming the ground into a treacherous, gleaming surface that reflected the garish, flickering glow of a distant billboard advertising cheap whiskey and even cheaper, broken dreams. Elena's heart hammered a frantic, desperate rhythm against her ribs. Each frantic beat a desperate plea for escape, a silent, guttural prayer for the very ground to swallow her whole, to erase her from this nightmare. To hulking figures, their faces obscured by the dim, flickering light and the wide, dripping brims of their rain-soaked hats, cornered her against a graffiti-scarred dumpster, its metal surface cold against her back. They weren't just any common thugs. She recognized the cold, predatory glint in their eyes, the deliberate slowness, the almost theatrical menace of their movements. They were collectors, enforcers for the Petrova crime family, or rather, what was left of its fractured remnants. Her father had made enemies, powerful ones, men with long memories and even longer, sharper knives. And his recent, sudden, and utterly mysterious disappearance had left a gaping void, a dangerous, volatile power vacuum that ambitious, ruthless vultures were all too eager to fill. Elena, his only child, his only heir, was now a vulnerable pawn in a brutal game she never asked to play. A sacrificial piece on a blood-stained chessboard. Elena Petrova, one of them rasped, his voice a gravelly, sandpaper whisper that sent a chilling shiver down her spine, raising goosebumps on her arms and making the hair on her neck stand on end. Your father's debts are long overdue, and the patience of our benefactors, the new powers that be, has run completely dry. I don't know anything about my father's business, she pleaded, her voice a tremor she couldn't control, barely audible above the relentless drumming of the rain and the pounding in her ears. She clutched her worn leather messenger bag tighter to her chest, pressing it against her rapidly beating heart, as if the flimsy material could offer some semblance of protection against the cold dread that was consuming her, piece by agonizing piece. I haven't seen him in weeks. I swear, I have no idea where he is or what he owed. I was never involved in his dealings. A cruel, guttural chuckle, devoid of any humor, echoed off the damp, echoing walls of the alley, a sound that grated on her nerves. Doesn't matter. The bloodline runs true. You carry his name, you inherit his burdens, his enemies, his mistakes. You owe us, the second man, his eyes dark, merciless, and utterly devoid of compassion, pulled a gleaming, deadly switchblade knife from his inner jacket pocket, the polished, razor-sharp blade catching the meager, flickering light, reflecting it ominously. It glinted, a silent promise of pain, of mutilation, a stark, terrifying symbol of their true intent. Elena's breath hitched in her throat, a dry, choked gasp that sounded loud in her own ears. This wasn't about money anymore, not about collecting a simple financial debt. This was about sending a brutal, public message, a chilling display of dominance in the chaotic, uncertain aftermath of her father's abrupt fall. They intended to make a gruesome example of her, to send a chilling, unforgettable warning to anyone else who dared defy their new, ruthless regime. A sudden, sharp crack rent the air, not the dull thud of a fist, but something sharper, more decisive, undeniably the sound of a well-placed, powerful blow delivered with incredible force. The first man grunted, a surprised, strangled gasp escaping his lips as he crumpled to the ground, collapsing like a puppet with cut strings, a dark, rapidly blossoming stain appearing on his pristine white shirt, spreading like an ink blot. Before Elena could even begin to process what had happened, her mind reeling from the shock, the second man, still brandishing his lethal knife, whirled around, his eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and sudden, palpable fear. But he was too slow, too unprepared. A blur of movement, impossibly fast and fluid, a swift, brutal strike delivered with practiced, deadly precision, and he too joined his accomplice on the cold, wet ground, his knife clattering uselessly beside him, a dull, metallic sound against the bricks, echoing in the sudden quiet. Elena gasped, her eyes wide, dilated with a potent mixture of terror and utter disbelief. A figure, tall and imposing, emerged from the deeper, inky blackness of the shadows, his silhouette cutting a formidable, almost mythic shape against the backdrop of the flickering streetlights and the driving rain. He moved with an effortless grace, a dangerous predator in his natural habitat. Every movement economical, purposeful, radiating an unseen power. He wore a tailored suit, dark as the night itself, a stark, almost elegant contrast to the grim, squalid surroundings, and his very presence exuded an aura of quiet, unyielding authority. An unspoken power that radiated from him like heat from a furnace, commanding immediate, unquestioning deference. He didn't speak immediately, simply surveyed the scene, his gaze cold, calculating, assessing the damage, the situation with a chilling detachment. Then, his eyes, the color of molten gold in the dim, flickering light, finally found hers, locking onto her with an unnerving, almost predatory intensity. They were intense, piercing, and held a depth of experience, a profound, chilling knowledge of the world's darkest corners that sent a powerful jolt, a powerful tremor, through her very being. She couldn't look away, she felt caught, mesmerized, like a small bird transfixed by a snake. There was no fear in his gaze, no hesitation, only a deep, unsettling calm, an almost terrifying self-possession that spoke of absolute control. He wasn't like the crude thugs who had threatened her, he was something entirely different. Something infinitely more dangerous, more powerful, yet paradoxically, in this terrifying, desperate moment, her unlikely, enigmatic savior. "Get up," he commanded, his voice a low, resonant rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath her feet. A powerful sound that cut through the pouring rain and the ringing in her ears. It wasn't a question, but an unequivocal, absolute order spoken with chilling authority. He offered no hand, no comforting gesture, just the stark, unwavering command. Elena, still trembling uncontrollably, her muscles aching from fear, scrambled to her feet, her eyes never leaving him, trying desperately to comprehend the whirlwind of events that had just unfolded. Who are you?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, hoarse with fear and adrenaline, raw from the terror. He took a slow, deliberate step closer, the rhythmic click of his expensive, polished shoes echoing sharply in the sudden, eerie silence of the alley. A sound that cut through the steady drumming of the rain. "My name is Alessio Volkov," he stated, his voice devoid of any discernible emotion, yet carrying an undeniable weight, a gravitas that spoke of immense, terrifying power. "And tonight, I saved your life." The implication hung heavy in the damp, cold air, a silent, chilling truth that settled deep within her. A life saved often came with a price, especially in their unforgiving world. A debt that would bind her forever. He paused, his golden eyes narrowing slightly as he took in her disheveled appearance. The fear etched on her pale face, and the lingering terror still shining brightly in her wide, dilated eyes. Your father, he continued, a hint of something unreadable. Perhaps a trace of grim amusement or cold judgment in his tone, made a lot of mistakes, Elena. Trusting the wrong people, making enemies he couldn't handle was one of them. You, however, seem to be caught in the unfortunate, bloody fallout. He then glanced down at the two unconscious, bleeding men at his feet. His gaze cold and dismissive. These men, they work for the Moretti family. They have a particular, very personal interest in what your father left behind, and in sending a message. Elena's mind reeled, struggling to make sense of it all, her thoughts a chaotic jumble. The Morettis. Her father had warned her about them, their ruthless ambition, their insatiable hunger for power, their brutal, merciless methods. Alessio Volkov, the name itself carried a certain chilling gravitas. A whispered legend in the dark annals of the underworld, a name synonymous with power and fear. He was the undisputed head of the Volkov Syndicate, a formidable, unyielding force that controlled vast swathes of the city's illicit economy, extending its tendrils into every dark corner. He was a man of immense, terrifying power, a king in his own right, and now, for reasons utterly unknown to her, he had inexplicably intervened in her desperate fate. Why, she finally managed to ask, her voice still shaky, barely holding together. A desperate plea for understanding. Why did you help me? What do you want in return? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket and for a terrifying moment, Elena thought he was pulling out a weapon, preparing to finish what the others had started. To turn his cold gaze upon her. But it was a sleek, modern smartphone, a stark contrast to the primitive violence around them. He made a quick call, speaking in hushed, authoritative tones that brooked no argument. No hesitation. She heard snippets of cleanup, take them to the usual place, discreetly, and ensure no loose ends remain, no witnesses. The implications were chillingly clear. Brutally efficient. These two men wouldn't be bothering anyone again, their problems and his would be permanently solved, erased from existence. He then returned his gaze to her, his expression unreadable yet filled with a potent, unwavering intensity. Let's just say, he began, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl that vibrated through her, sending a fresh wave of shivers down her spine. Your father owed me a favor. A very old, very significant favor, one that has long been due. And I have a peculiar, unwavering way of collecting on my debts, Elena. I never forget a debt, nor a promise. He took another slow, deliberate step, closing the remaining distance between them until he was almost touching her. Elena instinctively took a frantic step back, her heart still pounding like a drum against her ribs. The sheer proximity of him was overwhelming, a potent, intoxicating blend of raw danger, immense power, and something else, something undeniably captivating, almost mesmerizing, drawing her in despite her fear. From this moment on, Elena, he declared, his voice firm and unwavering, a decree carved in stone. Absolute and unyielding, you belong to me. The words hit her like a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs, leaving her gasping. Belong to him? She was not an object, not a mere possession to be claimed, to be owned. Yet, looking into those unyielding, golden eyes that held the promise of both absolute protection and absolute control, she knew there was no room for argument, no negotiation, no possibility of defiance. He had saved her from one kind of death, a brutal, anonymous end in a dark alley, only to claim her for a life she could barely comprehend, a life intertwined with his, bound by unseen, unbreakable chains. Her world had irrevocably changed, plunged into a darkness far deeper, far more complex, and infinitely more dangerous than she had ever known. She was now bound to Alessio Volkov, the most powerful and arguably the most dangerous man in Chicago, a man whose motives remained shrouded in a chilling, compelling mystery. Her fate, she realized with a cold certainty, was no longer her own. It was inextricably tied to his. The sleek, obsidian-black limousine purred through the rain-slicked streets of Chicago, a silent, luxurious cocoon separating Elena from the harsh reality of the city's grim, unforgiving underbelly. But the reality within the opulent confines of the car was even more unsettling, more profoundly disturbing, more suffocating. Alessio Volkov sat opposite her, his formidable silhouette framed by the passing streetlights. His gaze still unsettlingly focused on her, piercing and unwavering, making her feel utterly exposed. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the soft, almost imperceptible hum of the engine, the gentle swish of the wipers, and the frantic pounding of Elena's own heart. Elena felt like a trapped bird, caught in a snare, observing her captor, trying desperately to decipher his intentions, to find some clue, some crack in his impenetrable facade, some hint of what awaited her. "Where are we going?" she finally ventured, her voice still betraying a hint of lingering trepidation, a fragility she couldn't hide, even from herself. He didn't look away from her, his golden eyes remaining fixed on hers, unblinking. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one will find you. Somewhere the ghosts of your father's past and the hungry jackals of the Moretti family cannot reach." His answer was devoid of warmth, a simple, unadorned statement of fact, delivered with the stark, unyielding authority she was quickly coming to recognize as his default. "The Morettis will be looking. They won't stop until they've tied up all of your father's loose ends. Until they've eradicated any trace of the Petrova legacy, every potential threat. And you, Elena, are a very significant, very visible loose end. A beacon they will seek to extinguish." "But I still don't understand," she stammered, her brow furrowed in confusion, her mind reeling. "What did my father owe you? What kind of favor was so profound that it compels you to do this, to go to such lengths?" Alessio finally shifted, leaning back against the plush, cream-colored leather seats. The movement fluid and powerful, effortlessly graceful. A subtle flicker, almost imperceptible, crossed his face, a fleeting shadow of a distant, perhaps painful, memory. "A debt of honor, Elena, from a time when honor still held some meaning in our world. When a man's word, even among rivals and enemies, was his sacred bond. Your father, Mikhail, in his younger, perhaps more idealistic, undeniably reckless days, saved my life. It was a long time ago, a lifetime ago, when I was just starting out. A young man navigating the brutal, treacherous labyrinth of the city's underworld. And he was already a name to be reckoned with, a force in his own right, a rising power. I had made a grave mistake, a critical miscalculation that placed me in an impossible situation. Surrounded and utterly outmatched, on the verge of being eliminated, summarily executed. He pulled me from that situation, intervened when he had no obligation, risked his own standing, his own life, to do so. He asked for nothing in return, no repayment. Only that if I ever found myself in a position of power, able to help someone he truly cared about, someone innocent caught in the cruel gears of this world, I would. You, Elena, are that person? You are his legacy and my debt." Elena stared at him, a myriad of complex emotions swirling within her, profound surprise, deep confusion, a hint of grudging respect, and a deep, unsettling wonder at this revelation. Her father, the distant, often cold, enigmatic man she thought she knew, had saved the life of this powerful, terrifying man, this king of the underworld. This ruthless force of nature? It was a facet of his past she never knew. A testament to a different kind of man than the one who had disappeared, leaving a trail of chaos, and ultimately, her in his wake. "So, this is your way of repaying him?" she asked, a bitter taste in her mouth. The words laced with a defiance she barely felt, a futile attempt to assert control. "By taking me, by claiming me as your own, by imprisoning me?" A corner of his lips tilted upwards, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. A dangerous hint of amusement, of satisfaction. "Think of it as an exchange, Elena. Your safety, your very existence, your life for your cooperation. You are under my absolute protection now. That means you follow my rules. You stay where I tell you to stay. You do what I tell you to do. And you do not, under any circumstances, try to leave these grounds without my explicit, direct permission, which, I assure you, will not be granted. Your life is mine to protect, and I take that responsibility very seriously." His voice was soft, dangerously calm, yet infused with an ironclad authority that brooked no defiance, no argument, no possibility of escape. The limousine eventually pulled up to a magnificent, sprawling mansion, hidden behind imposing wrought iron gates, meticulously manicured hedges, and ancient, towering oak trees that cast long, ominous shadows. It was a fortress, a gilded cage designed not just for protection but for complete control. For someone of immense importance, someone to be guarded with unyielding vigilance, or perhaps to be irrevocably, beautifully imprisoned. Inside, The opulence was breathtaking, gleaming marble floors that reflected the ornate chandeliers with blinding clarity, antique furniture meticulously placed, priceless artwork adorning the walls. Each piece a testament to exquisite taste and immeasurable wealth. It was a world away from her small, modest apartment. A universe apart from the gritty alley where her life had irrevocably, violently changed. A stern-faced woman, immaculately dressed in a crisp black suit, her gray hair pulled back in a severe, unforgiving bun, greeted them at the grand, imposing entrance. "Mr. Volkov," she said, her voice crisp, professional, and entirely devoid of warmth. A model of efficiency. "Everything is prepared as you instructed, down to the last detail." Alessio simply nodded, his gaze briefly meeting Elena's, a spark of something unreadable, yet undeniably possessive in their golden depths. "This is Mrs. Petrova," he stated, his voice flat, definitive, a declaration to the world. "She will be staying here indefinitely. Ensure she has everything she needs, every comfort, every luxury, and ensure she does not leave these grounds without my explicit, direct permission. Is that clear, Mrs. Sokolov? Her safety is paramount." Mrs. Sokolov, the mansion's formidable housekeeper, raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. A flicker of surprise, quickly masked in her otherwise stoic expression, but she said nothing, merely inclining her head in acknowledgement. "Of course, Mr. Volkov. Your instructions are always followed precisely, without question." Elena felt a fresh wave of despair wash over her, cold and absolute, chilling her to the bone. Mrs. Petrova. He had already claimed her, not just as a ward, not just as an unwilling guest, but as a wife. At least in name, in this carefully constructed illusion of domesticity. It was a shrewd move, she realized, a brilliant tactical maneuver, a way to establish immediate, unquestionable control, to solidify her place by his side, and to send a clear, unambiguous message to anyone who might still seek to harm her, to exploit her connection to her father, that she was untouchable, protected by the most powerful man in Chicago. She was now inextricably linked to Alessio Volkov, the most feared man in Chicago. A declaration to the world, a brand upon her. Her room was not merely a room, but a magnificent suite. Larger and more luxurious than any hotel she had ever stayed in. More opulent than anything she had ever imagined. A grand four-poster bed draped in rich silks dominated the center. A private sitting area with velvet-upholstered chairs. A vast walk-in closet filled with designer clothes that were clearly not her size, but undeniably expensive, exquisitely tailored. It was beautiful, opulent, and utterly, completely suffocating. She felt like a beautiful exhibit in a gilded museum. An exquisite painting to be admired but not truly touched. Held captive by a force she couldn't comprehend, let alone fight, her fate sealed. Days bled into weeks, then into months, each day layering upon the last, weaving a new, bewildering existence for her. Elena was weighted on hand and foot, provided with every comfort imaginable, yet she felt a profound, aching sense of isolation, a deep loneliness that even the opulence couldn't mask. A hollow ache in her chest. Alessio was a constant, unsettling presence. He would appear at dinner, his conversations brief and direct. Never revealing much about his dangerous world, but always observing her. Those golden eyes seeming to probe the very depths of her soul, assessing, analyzing, dissecting. He would often ask about her interests, her studies, her dreams. A surprising attentiveness that belied his ruthless reputation, his formidable power. He bought her rare books from obscure European presses. Arranged for private tutors in subjects she expressed even a passing interest in. Ensuring she had the finest education money could buy, the best resources at her disposal, and even, on one occasion, brought her a rare, exotic orchid she had admired in a gardening magazine she had idly picked up, a gesture of unexpected thoughtfulness. These small, unexpected gestures, however, only served to deepen the enigma that was Alessio Volkov. He was a paradox, a dangerous man capable of chilling brutality. Capable of ordering death without a flicker of emotion, who showed unexpected kindness. A ruthless leader who meticulously cared for his unwilling, bewildered guest. She tried to escape once, a foolish, desperate attempt born of sheer desperation. To scale the high garden wall, convinced she could find a way out, find a way back to her old life. Her old identity. She almost made it over, her fingers scraping against the rough stone, her muscles burning. Before a silent, burly guard, seemingly materializing from the shadows of the expansive grounds, gently but firmly took her arm, his grip inescapable. He didn't speak, didn't threaten, didn't utter a single word, simply led her back to the mansion. His grip unwavering, his eyes impassive. Alessio was waiting in the drawing room, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, swirling it slowly. Contemplatively, his expression unreadable, yet radiating an undeniable, chilling power. "Trying to leave us so soon, Elena?" he asked, his voice soft, almost conversational, yet edged with a dangerous, steel-hard undertone that sent a fresh chill down her spine, making her muscles tense. Elena's defiance, so fragile to begin with, crumbled immediately, collapsing under the weight of his gaze. I can't stay here forever, Alessio. I have a life. Friends. I have to find my father. I can't just be locked away, a bird in a cage, no matter how golden." He took a slow, deliberate sip of his drink, his golden eyes never leaving hers, holding her captive. "Your father is gone, Elena. He is a ghost, a memory. And your life, as you knew it, is irrevocably over, a chapter closed. As for friends, they are a luxury you can no longer afford, not if you wish to live. Not if you wish to survive in this new reality. This dangerous world." He set his glass down on the polished mahogany table with a deliberate, echoing thud that resonated in the silent room. "You are safe here. Protected. Think of this as a necessary transition. A new chapter in your life, whether you like it or not, whether you embrace it or fight it. And you will be an invaluable part of it. In time, you will see." His golden eyes bore into hers. An unyielding, powerful declaration that left no room for doubt, no possibility of argument. "You are mine, Elena. And I protect what is mine, with every fiber of my being, with every resource at my disposal. Even if it means keeping you captive." His words, firm and possessive, sent a fresh shiver through her, a complex mixture of raw fear, grudging respect for his immense power, and something else, something undeniably, terrifyingly alluring, a primal pull she dared not name, a magnetic force drawing her in. She was bound to him, not by physical chains, but by a debt of life, by the brutal realities of their world, and by the unspoken, unyielding power of his will. A force stronger than any physical restraint. The golden cage, she realized, was far more elaborate, far more intricate, and infinitely more inescapable than she had ever imagined. It was a gilded prison, yes, but a prison that, slowly, subtly, was beginning to feel like the only safe place left in a dangerous, unforgiving world. Her resistance, she knew, was slowly beginning to ebb, replaced by a strange, unsettling acceptance. The gilded cage, as Elena had come to reluctantly call it, began to feel less like an absolute prison and more like a strange, unsettling, yet undeniably real and increasingly unavoidable, reality. Weeks bled into months, each day layering upon the last, weaving a new, bewildering existence for her within the opulent confines of the Volkov mansion. She learned the subtle rhythms of the household, the hushed, almost silent movements of the staff. Their faces always respectful, always discreet, their eyes never meeting hers directly. She noted the precise timing of Alessio's arrivals and departures, the subtle shifts in atmosphere that signaled his powerful presence or temporary absence, the increased tension when he was home, the slight relaxation when he was away. She continued her studies, devouring books from his expansive, leather-bound library, immersing herself in ancient history, esoteric languages, and complex art history, trying desperately to find solace and a semblance of purpose in these intellectual pursuits. A mental escape from her gilded confinement, a way to keep her mind sharp. Alessio, true to his word, provided everything she needed, every comfort, every luxury, even hiring private tutors and subjects she expressed even a passing interest in, ensuring she had the finest education money could buy, the best resources at her disposal. He still remained an enigma, a man of few words, his golden eyes observing her with an intensity that both unnerved and undeniably intrigued her. A silent, constant assessment of her every move, every thought. She noticed things, subtle details that revealed the true, dangerous nature of her surroundings, glimpses into the intricate web of power that held her captive. The subtle shift in the staff's demeanor when Alessio was present, a heightened alertness, a deferential bow, a palpable tension in their movements. The hushed conversations in foreign tongues she couldn't quite decipher, but understood were important, strategic, whispered behind closed doors. The discreet security details, burly, watchful men who were always in motion, ever present yet never intrusive, blending seamlessly into the background, their eyes constantly scanning, always alert. She began to understand the sheer scale of his empire, the intricate, shadowy web of power and control he wielded, extending far beyond the mansion walls, encompassing vast swathes of the city and beyond. She was living in the very heart of it, a silent, unwilling witness to the unseen machinations of the Chicago underworld, a world far more complex, more brutal, and more pervasive than she had ever imagined. One evening, as she sat sketching a particularly intricate floral pattern in the mansion's sunroom, the soft, golden glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the polished floor, a news report flickered on the large, flat-screen television in the corner. It spoke of a series of violent clashes between rival factions in the city's south side, whispers of a brewing, brutal gang war reaching a fever pitch. The reporter, his voice grave, mentioned the Moretti family, their growing aggression, their desperate attempts to reclaim lost ground, to reassert their fading power, and then a subtle, almost veiled reference to the Volkov Syndicate's strategic countermoves, their decisive, overwhelming retaliation. Elena's hand stilled on the charcoal stick, her heart quickening, a cold dread seeping into her bones. She knew, instinctively, with a chilling certainty, that Alessio was at the very center of it all. He was not just her protector, he was a warlord, a king defending his territory, expanding his dominion, and reshaping the city's criminal landscape with an iron fist. Later that night, Alessio returned, his usual impeccable suit slightly disheveled, a faint trace of exhaustion, almost imperceptible, around his piercing golden eyes. He walked with a determined stride, radiating a barely contained tension, a coiled readiness. He poured himself a drink, a dark amber liquid swirling in the crystal glass, glinting in the dim light of his study, reflecting the flickering fire in the hearth. Elena, emboldened by a sudden surge of curiosity, a courage she hadn't felt in a long time, decided to speak, to break the tense silence, to seek answers. "The news," she began, her voice a little shaky but firm. "The fighting, is it because of me? Because of my father? Am I the reason for this bloodshed?" He turned, his golden eyes meeting hers, holding them captive, unblinking. There was a moment of profound silence. A pause where the air seemed to thicken with unspoken truths, with the weight of difficult, brutal realities. Indirectly, he finally conceded, his voice a low, gravelly growl that sent a fresh shiver down her spine. "Your father's disappearance created a vacuum, a dangerous void that opportunistic predators, like the Morettis, rushed to fill. They believed they could sweep in and claim what was left of the Petrova operation, including any assets or, more importantly, any vital information your father might have possessed, any hidden leverage. And you, Elena, were considered the most direct, most vulnerable link to that information, to his legacy, to his secrets. They saw you as a means to an end. So, the wards over my father's territory? His debts? His past? His forgotten schemes?" she pressed, wanting clarity, needing to understand the full scope of her involvement, her culpability. Alessio took a slow, deliberate sip of his drink, his gaze never leaving hers, holding her captive. "Partially. But it's also about a larger power struggle, Elena. The Morettis have grown too ambitious, too reckless, too arrogant in their hubris. They overstepped their boundaries, encroached on territory that was not theirs, made threats they couldn't back up, challenged my authority. And when someone threatens what's mine, or those I deem under my protection, those who belong to me, I respond accordingly, decisively, and with overwhelming force. It is the only language they understand." The emphasis on mine was unmistakable, a subtle, chilling reminder of her irrevocably claimed place in his dangerous world. A spark of defiance, long dormant beneath layers of fear and resignation, flickered within Elena, catching fire, fueled by a resurgence of her inherent strength. "I don't want to be a reason for bloodshed, Alessio. I don't want to be a pawn in your war, a catalyst for violence, for death. I never asked for any of this. I want no part of it." He looked at her then, a deep, unsettling gaze that seemed to penetrate her very soul, stripping away her defenses, laying her bare. "You have no choice, Elena. You are already in the game, whether you wish it or not, whether you embrace it or fight it. You were in it the moment you were born, the daughter of Mikhail Petrova, heir to his name and his enemies. And now, you are mine. That means you are protected, yes, with every resource at my command, with every man I have. It also means you are a target, a vulnerable point in my armor. A perceived weakness they will exploit. My enemies will use any means necessary to undermine me. They will try to use you against me, to hurt you, to get to me, to cripple my operations, to break my will. You need to understand that, to accept that brutal reality. His words, though harsh, were a chilling, inescapable reality check. She was not just a prisoner, she was a strategic asset. A vulnerability that Alessio had taken under his wing, claimed as his own. For reasons that were still, to her, partially selfish. Partially honorable, but undeniably absolute. He had saved her, yes, from certain death, but in doing so, he had inextricably integrated her into his dangerous, brutal world, making her a permanent fixture in his life, tying her fate to his. A few days later, an incident occurred that solidified Alessio's words into a terrifying, visceral reality, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger. Elena was in the mansion's expansive garden sketching a particularly beautiful, dew-kissed rose bush, the morning sun warm on her skin, a rare moment of peace, when a sudden, sharp crack echoed through the air. It wasn't thunder, not a backfiring car. It was the distinct, unmistakable sound of a gunshot. Immediately, security guards, seemingly materializing from the shadows of the meticulously manicured hedges, converged on her, pushing her to the ground with practiced efficiency, shielding her with their own bodies, their movements swift and decisive. Another shot rang out, closer this time, followed by the rapid staccato of automatic gunfire. A horrifying symphony of violence that shattered the morning's tranquility. Chaos erupted. Shouts, the crunch of heavy boots on gravel, and the terrifying metallic symphony of weapons firing filled the air. A nightmare brought to life in broad daylight. Elena, pressed against the damp earth, her face buried in the fragrant soil, her heart pounding like a frantic drum against her ribs, a terrifying beat. Caught a terrifying glimpse of movement near the perimeter wall, a shadowy figure in black, swiftly retreating into the dense foliage, disappearing as quickly as he appeared. Then, Alessio was there, his powerful frame cutting through the chaos, his face grim, his golden eyes blazing with a cold, terrifying fury she had never witnessed before, a raw, primal rage. He didn't ask if she was hurt, his eyes scanned her body, a quick, thorough assessment, ensuring her safety, and then he barked orders at his men, his voice sharp, authoritative, radiating absolute, unyielding command. Secure the perimeter. Find them. I want every inch of this estate scoured. No stone unturned. No man escapes. He then knelt beside her, his hand, surprisingly gentle, touching her arm, his touch a steadying, anchoring presence amidst the chaos. Are you all right, Elena? He asked, his voice low, a controlled intensity vibrating beneath the surface of his calm demeanor, a hidden concern. Elena could only nod, still trembling uncontrollably, her body shaking. The metallic tang of fear, a bitter taste in her mouth, her throat constricted. She understood now, with chilling clarity. This wasn't just about her father's old debts. This was about her very existence becoming a point of contention in a brutal, unending war. She was a prize, a symbol, a valuable asset. A perceived weakness that Alessio's enemies sought to exploit, to shatter, to break him. That night, Alessio's demeanor was different. He was more watchful, more intense, a predator on high alert, his senses honed to every detail. He instructed his head of security to double the guard, to implement new, stricter protocols, to leave no vulnerability unchecked, no opportunity for attack. He ate dinner in silence, his gaze often drifting to Elena, a deep, unsettling concern etched on his powerful face, a worry he rarely allowed to show, revealing a deeper care. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost a whisper, yet filled with an undeniable gravitas. They will not stop, Elena, he said, his eyes fixed on hers, unwavering, penetrating. As long as you are with me, as long as you carry the Petrova name, they will continue to try. They believe if they hurt you, they hurt me. They believe you are my weakness, my Achilles heel, the chink in my armor. He paused, a muscle in his jaw clenching, a sign of suppressed rage, of simmering fury. They are wrong. You are not a weakness. You are mine to protect, and I will defend what is mine with every fiber of my being. With my very life, if necessary. His words were a declaration, a stark warning, and perhaps a perverse kind of reassurance. A potent, terrifying promise. He wouldn't let them win. He wouldn't let them touch her. But the cost, Elena realized, was her freedom, her autonomy, her very identity. Perhaps even her soul. She was no longer just Elena Petrova, she was Alessio Volkov's possession, his protected asset, forever bound to his dangerous world. And a new, unsettling emotion began to stir within her, a complex, confusing blend of raw fear, grudging respect for his power, and something else, something undeniably, terrifyingly alluring. A primal pull she dared not name, a magnetic force drawing her inexorably in. She was a pawn, yes, but a pawn now with an incredibly powerful protector, a protector who, she was slowly realizing, had begun to see her as something more than just a debt repaid, something more profound, something deeply cherished. The golden cage, she feared, was slowly but surely becoming her only reality. The only place she could truly exist, the only place she was truly safe. The assassination attempt, though foiled with brutal efficiency and swift, decisive action, left an indelible mark on Elena, etching itself into her memory with chilling clarity. The casualness with which life was threatened, the sudden, violent rupture of peace, the brutal, unyielding response of Alessio's men, it all served as a harsh, constant reminder of the dangerous, unforgiving world she now inhabited, a world where violence was a language fluently spoken. She became more aware, more vigilant. Her senses heightened to every subtle shift in the mansion's atmosphere, every distant sound, every fleeting shadow, every movement of the guards. Yet, amidst the lingering fear, a strange, undeniable shift occurred in her relationship with Alessio. The incident, rather than pushing them further apart, seemed to forge a new, unspoken understanding. A deeper, more profound connection rooted in shared vulnerability and fierce, mutual protection. He was no longer just her captor, he was her shield, her unwavering protector against a world that actively, mercilessly sought her harm, a world that wanted her dead. Alessio, for his part, became subtly more open, more transparent. Though still guarding his innermost thoughts and emotions with fierce, almost primal intensity, he began to share fragments of his past, glimpses into the ruthless, cutthroat world that had shaped him, molded him into the formidable man he was. He spoke of strategic alliances, of brutal betrayals, of the delicate, ever-shifting balance of power that maintained order or chaos in the city's dark underbelly. He explained the intricate complexities of his vast business empire, the legitimate fronts that skillfully masked the illicit operations, the constant vigilance required to stay one step ahead of ruthless rivals, and relentless law enforcement to maintain his dominance. He was, she realized, educating her, preparing her, perhaps, for a crucial role she hadn't yet fully envisioned, a place by his side, a partner in his empire. One evening, over a late dinner in the mansion's opulent dining room, the soft glow of candlelight illuminating their faces, Elena found the courage, fueled by a growing sense of trust and an unyielding curiosity, to ask about her father again. Specifically about his long-ago relationship with Alessio. "You said my father saved your life," she began, her voice hesitant, almost a whisper. "How exactly did that happen? He never spoke of you, never once mentioned your name, almost as if he wanted to forget that part of his life." Alessio paused, his fork hovering over his plate, a piece of perfectly cooked steak forgotten. A distant, contemplative look entered his golden eyes, a fleeting shadow of a painful, perhaps difficult, memory. "It was a long time ago, Elena. A lifetime ago. I was young, ambitious, undeniably foolish, and I made a mistake. A critical miscalculation that put me directly in the crosshairs of a very powerful, very unforgiving rival. A man who showed no mercy. I was cornered, outnumbered, facing certain death in a derelict warehouse on the docks. A rat in a trap. Your father, Mikhail, he wasn't involved in that particular feud, had no personal stake. No reason to intervene, but he did. He saw something, I suppose, a chance to right a wrong, or perhaps a young man about to be unjustly cut down before his time, before he could make his mark. He created a diversion, a brilliant, calculated maneuver that drew attention away from me, allowing me to escape by the narrowest of margins, by the skin of my teeth. It cost him dearly, nearly started a full-blown war between his faction and my rivals, put his own life at immense risk, risked everything he had built. He risked his life for you, Elena asked, genuinely surprised, a sense of disbelief in her tone. The image of her reserved, sometimes cold, often distant father risking everything for a young, ambitious gangster seemed utterly out of character. A profound contradiction to the man she thought she knew, the man who had often seemed so aloof. He did, Alessio confirmed, a rare hint of genuine respect, even admiration in his voice, softening his usually hard features. He didn't owe me anything. He could have let me die in that warehouse, could have simply walked away, ignored my plight. But he didn't. He told me then that someday I might have the opportunity to repay that favor. Not to him directly, he said, for he sought no personal gain, but to someone he truly cared about. Someone innocent caught in the cruel gears of this world, someone who needed protection. You, Elena, are that person? You are his legacy and my debt, a sacred obligation. The weight of his words settled upon her, a profound realization that resonated deep within her soul, changing her perception of her father forever. Her father, for all his flaws, for all the darkness he embraced, had possessed a deep, unwavering sense of honor, a loyalty that transcended the brutal realities of their world, a hidden core of integrity she had never seen. And Alessio, despite his own ruthless nature, his cold efficiency, was a man who remembered debts, who honored promises and repaid them with an unwavering, absolute commitment. This wasn't just about power or control anymore. It was about legacy, about honor, and about a promise made in a different time. A promise that now shaped her very existence, tying her inextricably to him. As weeks turned into months, Elena found herself not just surviving, but slowly, tentatively, beginning to thrive within the golden cage. She adapted to the rhythms of her new life, finding a strange, unexpected comfort in the opulent confines of the mansion. A sense of security she hadn't known since her childhood. She continued her studies, devouring books from his expansive, leather-bound library, immersing herself in ancient history, esoteric languages, and complex art history, trying desperately to find solace and a semblance of purpose in these intellectual pursuits. A mental escape that sharpened her mind. Alessio, true to his word, provided everything she needed, every comfort, every luxury, even hiring private tutors in subjects she expressed even a passing interest in. Ensuring she had the finest education money could buy, the best resources at her disposal. He still remained an enigma, a man of few words, his golden eyes observing her with an intensity that both unnerved and undeniably intrigued her. A silent, constant assessment of her every move, every thought, every nuance. One afternoon, Alessio brought her a small, exquisitely carved wooden box, its surface polished to a soft sheen, clearly an object of great care. Your father left this for you, Elena, he said, his voice softer, more tender than usual, almost a caress. He instructed me to give it to you when I felt the time was right, when you were ready to receive it, when you could truly understand its meaning. Elena's hands trembled as she picked up the locket, the cold metal a stark contrast to the warmth that spread through her chest. A sudden rush of emotion. It was an antique, beautifully crafted, clearly a family heirloom, imbued with memories. Upon opening it, she found two tiny, faded photographs, one of her as a baby, nestled securely in her mother's loving arms, her mother's smile radiant, full of warmth, and the other, a surprisingly youthful, smiling picture of her father, a warmth in his eyes she rarely remembered, a gentle expression. A wave of raw, overwhelming emotion, a tsunami of grief and longing washed over her. Tears, long held back, streamed down her face, cleansing away years of suppressed grief, of unspoken sorrow. This was a tangible piece of her past, a precious link to the family she had lost. A heartbreaking reminder of the love that had existed before the darkness consumed everything. Before the world broke. Alessio watched her, his expression unreadable. Yet there was a deep softness in his golden eyes she hadn't seen before. A glimpse of hidden empathy, a shared sadness. He didn't offer empty words of comfort, no platitudes, for he knew they were hollow. But his silent, unwavering presence itself was a powerful anchor, a solid rock in her storm of emotion, a silent, comforting strength. He allowed her to grieve, to reconnect with her lost family, recognizing, perhaps, that even in their brutal, unforgiving world, some things were sacred, some emotions pure, some connections unbreakable. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, barely audible, filled with genuine gratitude. Thank you for this, Alessio. It means everything. More than you could ever know. He simply nodded, then, to her profound surprise, gently reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb, his touch light, tender, unexpected, yet incredibly potent. The physical contact sent a jolt through her, a warmth that spread through her veins, contradicting the lingering coldness of her fear, the remnants of her grief. A comfort she hadn't realized she craved. It was a gesture of intimacy, of profound tenderness from a man who rarely showed either a rare, precious crack in his formidable armor, revealing a human heart beneath. In the ensuing months, the Moretti family's attacks intensified, becoming more desperate, more reckless, their actions fueled by a spiraling sense of desperation. A last-ditch effort to reclaim what they had lost. They had tried to target Alessio's businesses, his key associates, and more than once, they had tried to breach the mansion's formidable defenses, their efforts growing increasingly brazen, more violent. Each attempt was met with Alessio's swift, brutal efficiency. Their attacks turned back with overwhelming force, their numbers dwindling. Elena, privy to the hushed conversations, the late-night meetings, the constant vigilance, understood that the conflict was reaching a crescendo, a boiling point, a final, inevitable reckoning. She was no longer a naive girl, she was a woman who had witnessed the sharp edges of survival, the ruthless pursuit of power, and the unwavering, absolute loyalty of a dangerous man. One evening, Alessio summoned her to his private study, a room usually reserved for his most trusted advisors for the weightiest decisions. The room was dark, the only light emanating from a single desk lamp, casting long, dramatic shadows across his stern, unyielding face. He held a document in his hand, a heavy, official-looking envelope, its contents unknown, yet clearly significant. The Morettis are making their final, desperate move, he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying an undeniable, chilling weight, a stark prediction. They have consolidated their remaining forces, gathered their last vestiges of strength for one decisive, all-or-nothing strike. They believe they can cripple my operations, shatter my power, reclaim their lost glory. They are wrong, of course. Utterly, fatally wrong. But this will be the end of their family, Elena. One way or another, their reign of terror will conclude and a new era will begin. Elena felt a knot of cold dread tighten in her stomach, a physical manifestation of her fear. And what does that mean for me, Alessio? What is my part in this final act? He looked at her then, his golden eyes intense, searching, probing her deepest thoughts, her true feelings. It means you need to be prepared, Elena. Not just for the physical danger that may come, for that is always a possibility, but for what comes next, for the aftermath, for the vacuum that will be created. Your father, he was clever, profoundly so, in ways even I underestimated. He amassed a considerable fortune, vast resources hidden away, untraceable, known only to him. Meticulously protected. He knew this day might come, he anticipated the chaos, the need for a safe harbor for you. He left explicit instructions, a will that names you as his sole heir, but with a crucial condition. He pushed the heavy, parchment envelope across the polished mahogany desk towards her. The condition is that you are placed under the protection of someone he trusted implicitly. Someone who could ensure your safety and the security of his legacy. Someone who could guide you through the treacherous waters of this world. Someone who would keep you safe at all costs. Elena picked up the document, her hands trembling uncontrollably, her heart pounding in her chest. Her father, even in his mysterious disappearance, had still been orchestrating her future, pulling the strings from beyond the veil, guiding her destiny. She opened the will, her eyes scanning the dense legal jargon. And then her gaze landed on a specific clause, a name. Her breath hitched, caught in her throat. Alessio Volkov. He was named as her protector, the executor of the estate, the man responsible for guiding her, for securing her inheritance, for shaping her future, for claiming her. He made you my guardian, she whispered, the words barely audible. A profound sense of destiny settling upon her, heavy and inescapable. Alessio leaned back in his imposing chair, a faint, almost unreadable expression on his face. A hint of something akin to satisfaction, to triumph. He knew. He always knew I would honor my debt, Elena, that my word was unbreakable, my loyalty absolute. And he understood that in this world, some debts are repaid in ways that bind lives together, irrevocably intertwine destinies, making them one. He trusted me to keep you safe, to mold you, to help you understand this world, to guide you through its darkness, to build something new from the ashes of his mistakes, from the ruins of his past. And that I intend to do with every fiber of my being, with every ounce of my power." He then stood, walked slowly around the desk, his movements deliberate and powerful, and stopped directly in front of her. He reached out, his hand gently cupping her chin, his calloused thumb tracing the line of her jaw, tilting her face up to meet his intense gaze. His eyes, usually so cold and unyielding, now held a complex mixture of fierce determination, undeniable possessiveness, and something else, something softer, something akin to a burgeoning, profound affection. "This isn't just about a debt anymore, Elena," he murmured, his voice a low, dangerous growl that sent fresh shivers down her spine, yet also ignited a fierce warmth within her. "It's about you. It's about us. And it's about our future. Together. A future I will build for us, no matter the cost." The unspoken promise, the undeniable claim, hung heavy in the air between them, a tangible force, a palpable connection. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, a confusing mix of lingering fear and an undeniable, intoxicating pull towards him, a magnetic force she couldn't resist, couldn't deny. She was no longer just a protected asset, she was a partner, a part of his life, bound to him by past debts, present dangers, and a future she was only just beginning to comprehend, a future she now, unexpectedly, wanted to embrace. The golden cage had transformed subtly, powerfully, into something more complex, more potent, and undeniably, irrevocably hers, a place where she was safe, protected, and loved, a place where she truly belonged. The city held its breath, a tense, suffocating quiet settling over the sprawling urban landscape before the inevitable, brutal storm. It was the calm before the tempest, an eerie stillness that preceded the eruption of unimaginable violence. Alessio's words echoed in Elena's mind, a constant, chilling refrain: "This will be the end of their family, one way or another." She understood the gravity of the situation, the immense stakes involved. This wasn't just another skirmish, another territorial dispute, it was a war for absolute dominance. A final, bloody confrontation that would irrevocably reshape the landscape of the Chicago underworld, determining who truly held ultimate power, who would write the next chapter of its history. And she, Elena, was inextricably linked to the outcome, a silent, unwilling participant, a queen waiting for her king to return from battle. In the tense, charged days leading up to the inevitable clash, Alessio's focus was absolute, unwavering, a laser-like intensity that bordered on frightening. He spent long, tireless hours in his opulent study, coordinating strategies, issuing commands to his vast network, his phone a constant, vital companion, connecting him to the myriad facets of his empire. The mansion itself buzzed with a heightened sense of urgency, an almost palpable tension that seeped into every corner. Guards moved with a quiet, efficient intensity, their faces grim, their weapons more visible, their gazes more watchful, more suspicious of every shadow. Elena, drawn by an instinct she couldn't quite name, a profound pull towards him, found herself gravitating towards him during these tense moments. She would bring him fresh coffee, silently sit in his study, observing him from a respectful distance, absorbing the sheer force of his will, the calculating brilliance of his mind, the intricate web of strategy he wove. She saw a different side of him, not just the cold, ruthless boss, but the brilliant strategist, the unwavering leader, the man who carried the immense weight of an entire empire on his formidable shoulders, sacrificing sleep, peace, and perhaps even his soul for its dominance. One evening, as she was about to quietly leave his study, having replenished his coffee and watched him for hours, he called her name, his voice a low rumble that cut through the silence, anchoring her. "Elena." She turned, her heart quickening, a sudden surge of adrenaline. He was standing by the tall, arched window, looking out at the sprawling, glittering cityscape, his back to her, his powerful silhouette framed by the distant neon glow. A king surveying his domain. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, yet filled with an undeniable gravitas, a chilling certainty. "It begins. The final confrontation. The war will reach its climax. I want you to stay in your suite. Do not leave under any circumstances. My most trusted men will be guarding you directly, their lives forfeit if anything happens to you." You are to be completely secure. A profound chill ran down her spine, a cold knot of dread tightening in her stomach. A physical manifestation of her fear. You're going to be out there, aren't you, Alessio? In the thick of it? Facing the danger yourself? He turned slowly, his golden eyes meeting hers, a flicker of something unreadable yet resolute. In their depths, a silent promise. My presence is required. A leader doesn't send his men into battle without leading them, without facing the same risks, without fighting by their side. They fight for me, but they also fight by my side, knowing I share their fate. Be careful, she whispered, the words surprising even herself. Escaping her lips before she could truly process them, a desperate plea. The fear for his safety, a feeling she hadn't anticipated. A depth of concern she hadn't known she possessed, was real and visceral. Gripping her heart with an icy hand. A ghost of a smile, fleeting and almost imperceptible, touched his lips. A rare softening of his hard features, a momentary glimpse of warmth. I always am, Elena. My survival is paramount. Not just for me, but for what we are building for our future. He then took a deliberate step towards her, closing the distance. Until he stood directly before her, his presence overwhelming. His gaze was unwavering, intense, searching. Remember what I told you. This is about more than just a debt, more than just survival. It's about us. It's about our future. And I intend to claim it, to build it, to forge it, with you by my side, as my queen. He paused, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. A rare vulnerability in his eyes that made her breath catch. A profound tenderness. Wait for me, Elena. I will return. I promise. The next day dawned under a heavy, oppressive gray sky, mirroring the oppressive atmosphere within the mansion. Elena retreated to her suite, the sounds of the sprawling city outside muffled by the thick, soundproofed walls, yet the tension was palpable, a living, breathing entity in the air, pressing down on her. She tried to read, to distract herself, to lose herself in the pages of a forgotten novel. But her mind constantly drifted to Alessio, to the dangers he faced, to the potential outcomes of the brutal war being waged in the unseen streets of Chicago. Hours passed with agonizing slowness, each minute an eternity, marked by the occasional distant siren, the muffled shouts that seemed to carry even through the thick walls, the terrifying knowledge that lives were being lost, power was being fought for, and her fate, irrevocably, was tied to it all, to his survival. Night fell, bringing with it a strange, unsettling, almost deafening quiet. The sounds of conflict had slowly subsided, leaving behind an eerie, profound silence, a vacuum. Elena paced her room, her anxiety mounting with every passing minute, twisting her stomach into knots. Had he returned? Was he safe? Was he even alive? The uncertainty was agonizing, a torment far worse than the sounds of battle, a silent terror. She wanted to rush out, to demand answers, to break through the silence. But she remembered his command, his last words to her, do not leave. She clung to that. The last tangible connection to him. Finally, in the dead of night, as the city lay sleeping, or perhaps simply exhausted from the day's violence, she heard footsteps approaching her door. Heavy and deliberate, yet strangely muted. Her heart leaped into her throat, a frantic bird desperate for release. The door opened slowly, revealing Alessio standing there, silhouetted against the dimly lit hallway. A powerful, almost mythical figure, a warrior returned. He was alive. Relief so profound it almost brought her to her knees, washed over her. A tidal wave of overwhelming emotion. He was bruised, a shallow cut marring his temple, his impeccable suit torn and bloodied in places. A testament to the brutal battle, but his golden eyes still held their fierce intensity. Though now tinged with undeniable exhaustion, a deep weariness that spoke of immense effort, of immense sacrifice. Alessio, she breathed, her voice a gasp, rushing towards him without a second thought. Her hands instinctively reaching out to touch him, to assure herself he was real, tangible, alive. He caught her, his arms wrapping around her with a fierce, almost desperate strength, pulling her close, crushing her against his battered body. The raw scent of gunpowder, rain, and blood clung to him, a stark, visceral reminder of the brutal battle he had just fought, the carnage he had witnessed, the lives he had taken. He buried his face in her hair, holding her tight, his embrace a powerful mixture of raw strength, of profound relief, and a surprising, almost shocking vulnerability that resonated deep within her, echoing her own. For the first time, Elena felt the true, immense weight of his world, the immense burden he carried. And a fierce, protective instinct, mirroring his own, surged within her. A primal urge to comfort and protect him, to share his burden. "It's over," he murmured into her hair, his voice rough with fatigue, yet laced with triumph. With finality. "The Morettas are no more. Their reign is ended. Chicago is ours, Elena. Entirely ours. We have claimed it." Elena held him tighter, a wave of complex, overwhelming emotions washing over her. Relief, yes, a profound, soul-deep relief. But also a dawning realization of the human cost of his victory, the brutal, unyielding reality of the world he dominated, the lives sacrificed, the blood spilled. But in that moment, in the raw intimacy of his embrace, she also felt a strange, undeniable sense of belonging, a profound, visceral connection to this dangerous, powerful man who had saved her, and then unequivocally claimed her as his own. He pulled back slightly, his hands still on her arms, holding her gently but firmly. His gaze intense. He looked at her, truly looked at her, his golden eyes searching hers for something, reassurance, understanding, or perhaps an answer to the unspoken question that hung palpably between them, charged with anticipation, with unspoken longing. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a tentative, hesitant touch. It was a soft exploration at first, a gentle question, then, with a low, guttural groan, he deepened it, a fierce, hungry demand that stole her breath away, consuming her completely. It was a kiss of victory, of profound relief, of undeniable possession, and of a burgeoning, undeniable passion that had simmered beneath the surface of their complex relationship for months. Finally erupting, consuming them both, Elena responded with an intensity that surprised even herself. A primal force she hadn't known she possessed, her hands fisting in his bloody jacket, pulling him closer, desperate for more. For every touch, every breath. In that moment, all her fears, her reservations, her initial defiance melted away, replaced by a searing current of desire. A primal connection to the man who was both her captor and her savior, her protector and her claimer. He had promised a future, and in that kiss, she felt the first terrifying, exhilarating taste of it. A future inextricably linked to his, a future she now craved. Later, as they lay intertwined in her opulent bed, the first hesitant rays of dawn painting the room in soft hues of gray and rose, Alessio held her close, his breathing deep and even, his powerful body a heavy, comforting weight beside her. He was still the powerful, dangerous Mafia boss, the ruthless king of the underworld. But in the quiet, intimate sanctuary of their shared space, a different man emerged, a man capable of tenderness, of fierce loyalty, and of a profound, possessive love that had claimed her completely, utterly. Body and soul. Elena traced the strong, unyielding line of his jaw, feeling the warmth of his skin against her fingertips, a silent testament to his living presence, his unwavering strength. She was no longer just the daughter of Mikhail Petrova, caught in the terrifying fallout of his world, a victim of circumstance, a pawn. She was Elena Volkov, claimed, protected, and loved by the most powerful, most dangerous man in Chicago. The golden cage had not just transformed, it had become her home, her sanctuary, her refuge. And the man who held the key, her undeniable destiny. The storm had broken, and from its ashes, a new, complex bond had been forged. One that would redefine their lives and the very landscape of their dangerous, interconnected world. The future, she realized, was now theirs to navigate together. In a world that was both breathtakingly beautiful and brutally savage, fiercely dangerous and undeniably alluring. A world they would conquer as one. The dust of the Moretti War settled, leaving a grim tableau of ruin and triumph in its wake. The scent of smoke and victory clinging to the air and cementing Alessio Volkov as the undisputed, unchallenged king of Chicago's underworld. His power was absolute, his authority unquestioned, his dominance complete. But his reign was not one of simple brutality or crude force, it was one of calculated expansion, strategic consolidation, and a shrewd, far-sighted vision for the future. A new era of organized crime, meticulously planned. And by his side, an unexpected partner, a formidable queen to his king, had emerged from the shadows, stepping into the light. Elena. After that pivotal, transformative night, their relationship deepened with a breathtaking, almost dizzying speed, evolving from protector and protected into something far more profound. The emotional walls Elena had painstakingly built around herself over years. Elaborate defenses against a harsh world crumbled, replaced by a fierce, unyielding loyalty and a passionate, all-consuming devotion to Alessio. He, in turn, opened up to her in ways she never thought possible, sharing his intricate plans, his deepest concerns, his secret vulnerabilities, and even the occasional, rare glimpse into the complex, often tumultuous emotional landscape he usually kept hidden beneath layers of impenetrable composure. Elena, with her sharp intellect, her innate curiosity, and her quick understanding, became more than just a confidant, more than just a lover, more than just a protected asset. She became an active, invaluable participant in the forging of his new empire, a crucial strategist. She delved into her father's hidden financial records, a labyrinth of numbers and coded transactions, uncovering intricate networks of legitimate businesses and offshore accounts that Alessio, for all his power, for all his knowledge, hadn't even been aware of. Her extensive knowledge of art history and foreign languages, once merely academic pursuits, proved invaluable in deciphering coded ledgers, navigating complex international agreements, and communicating with shadowy contacts across the globe, opening doors he couldn't access. She brought a level of sophistication, intellectual prowess, and a nuanced understanding of the world that Alessio's traditional muscle and enforcers never could, filling a vital, irreplaceable void in his operations. She was not merely a trophy, she was an essential pillar of his burgeoning empire. One sunny afternoon, Alessio found her poring over a stack of blueprints for a new commercial development. Her brow furrowed in concentration, a look of fierce determination on her face, a glint of ambition in her eyes. He leaned against the doorframe of his study, a silent, powerful presence. Observing her for a moment, a faint smile playing on his lips, a mixture of pride and amusement. Before finally speaking, "You seem quite engrossed, Elena, lost in the world of numbers and lines, charting a new course." Elena looked up, a bright spark of enthusiasm in her eyes, a genuine excitement she hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. "This is fascinating, Alessio. My father, for all his flaws, for all the darkness he embraced, was a brilliant businessman. A true visionary in his own twisted way. These plans there for a new luxury hotel, strategically located near the city's bustling financial district. He even secured permits and initial funding under a web of shell corporations, meticulously planned every detail, laid the groundwork for something truly grand. He wasn't just building a criminal enterprise, he was building a legitimate empire, carefully interwoven with the illicit, a legacy that could endure." Alessio walked over, his powerful frame casting a shadow over the blueprints, his gaze falling upon the intricate designs, absorbing every detail. He was indeed a visionary in his own way. He saw opportunities others missed, dreamed of a different kind of power, but he lacked the absolute ruthlessness, the decisive, unforgiving hand needed to truly dominate, to eliminate threats before they materialized, to hold onto what he built. He hesitated, he sought compromise, he was too sentimental. That was his ultimate weakness, what ultimately led to his downfall, to his disappearance. He then looked at Elena, his gaze softening, a faint, almost proud smile playing on his lips, a silent acknowledgement of her transformation. "You, however, seem to possess both the vision, the intelligence to see the grand design, and a growing understanding of the ruthlessness required to execute it, to survive in this world, to protect what is ours." Elena felt a thrill course through her veins, a powerful surge of adrenaline and a deep sense of accomplishment. He wasn't just observing her, he was acknowledging her contribution, recognizing her evolving strength, her transformation from a sheltered girl into a formidable woman. "I'm learning," she admitted, her voice steady, confident, a confident gleam in her eyes. "And I think I can help you build on this, Alessio. Legitimizing some of these ventures, expanding into new, seemingly clean markets. Diversifying our assets, it would not only exponentially increase your wealth and influence, but also solidify your power in a way that mere force, mere intimidation cannot. It builds a legacy that transcends the shadows, that can stand in the light." Alessio's golden eyes narrowed slightly, a thoughtful, calculating expression on his face, weighing her words, recognizing their undeniable truth. He saw not just a woman he desired with an all-consuming passion, but a brilliant mind, a strategic asset, a true partner who could elevate his empire to new, unprecedented heights, building a bridge between the underworld and the legitimate, securing their future. "Tell me more, Elena," he commanded, a hint of genuine excitement, almost an eager anticipation in his voice. "Show me your vision. Show me our future." Over the next few exhilarating months, Elena threw herself into the task with an almost obsessive dedication, fueled by purpose and passion, by a desire to prove herself, to truly belong. She worked tirelessly, analyzing complex financial data, meeting discreetly with architects, lawyers, and business consultants under strict, silent supervision, of course, meticulously planning the expansion and legitimization of the Volkov Syndicate's vast network. She helped Alessio navigate the treacherous, often opaque waters of legitimate business, transforming illicit gains into vast, seemingly clean enterprises that were beyond reproach, beyond suspicion. The luxury hotel, a series of high-end, exclusive restaurants, a global import-export company, a significant stake in a cutting-edge technology startup, a philanthropic foundation, all were brought to fruition under their combined, unwavering efforts, each a testament to their growing synergy, their shared vision. Their collaboration extended far beyond the realm of business. Alessio, seeing her innate intelligence, her burgeoning confidence, and her astute grasp of human nature, began to involve her in some of the more delicate political maneuvering within the underworld and beyond. He trusted her judgment, sought her counsel on difficult, often life-or-death decisions, and often found her insights surprisingly astute, cutting through the rhetoric to the heart of the matter, providing perspectives he had overlooked. She learned to read the subtle cues, the unspoken threats, the intricate dance of power and loyalty that governed their dangerous world, becoming a master of its unspoken rules. She had truly become his equal, his indispensable partner, his strategic advisor. One evening, as they celebrated the wildly successful grand opening of their first luxury hotel, a glittering spectacle attended by the city's elite, both legitimate and otherwise, Elena stood proudly beside Alessio, a champagne flute held delicately in her hand, looking out at the glittering cityscape from the panoramic penthouse suite. He was surrounded by influential figures, captains of industry, powerful politicians, and shadowy underworld bosses, all paying homage to the man who now commanded their respect, their fear, and their unwavering loyalty. She saw the admiration in their eyes, the grudging respect, the undeniable acknowledgement of his power, and she knew, with a quiet certainty, that a significant part of that admiration was also directed at her, the poised, intelligent woman by his side, the undeniable queen to his king, his partner in all things. "You've truly built something incredible, Alessio," she said, her voice soft but filled with genuine pride, her gaze sweeping across the magnificent, bustling ballroom. "A true empire built to last." He turned, his gaze falling upon her, his golden eyes radiating a profound warmth, a deep sense of possessiveness, and an undeniable adoration that made her heart swell. "We built it, Elena. Together." Every brick, every ledger, every strategic move, every risk taken, he reached out, his hand gently cupping her jaw, his thumb stroking her cheek, a tender gesture that spoke volumes, a silent declaration of his love. "You are more than just my partner in this, my love. You are the architect of a new era, the heart of this empire, the foundation of our future. My empress, my future, my everything. My life." The words, my love, my empress, my everything, spoken so easily, so naturally, so profoundly, sent a shiver of pure joy through her, a warmth that spread through her entire being, settling deep within her soul. She was no longer just the girl he saved from death or the woman he claimed as his possession. She was his equal, his confidant, his indispensable partner, his lover, and the undeniable force behind his evolving empire. Their bond, forged in danger, tested by fire, and sealed by a passionate, unwavering love, had proven to be unbreakable, a testament to the unforeseen power of their unlikely union. However, even in their triumph, even in the glittering halls of their newfound empire, the shadows of their past and the inherent dangers of their world still lingered, a constant, subtle threat, a reminder that peace was always fragile. The ghost of the Moretti family, though defeated and scattered, still cast a long, chilling shadow, And in the ruthless world of power and ambition, new rivals were always lurking, watching, waiting for an opportunity to strike, to usurp, to shatter what they had built, to claim their throne. Elena knew with a quiet certainty that their journey was far from over, that challenges would inevitably arise, testing their strength, their resolve, their love. But with Alessio by her side, intertwined in body and soul, united in purpose, she was ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead, ready to build an empire and a future together. Their love, born from the crucible of danger and hardened by shared trials, had become their greatest strength, their most powerful weapon in a world that demanded both ruthless cunning and unwavering, absolute devotion. They were a force, united and formidable, ready to face the world as one, to carve out their destiny, to rule their empire. The consolidation of Alessio's power, masterminded in large part by Elena's strategic brilliance, ushered in a period of unprecedented prosperity for the Volkov syndicate. The city, once ravaged by gang warfare, now hummed with a different kind of order, one dictated by Alessio's iron will and Elena's refined vision. Legitimate businesses flourished under their combined guidance, providing a respectable facade and a steady flow of untraceable wealth, while the shadows continued to yield their illicit, yet meticulously managed, profits. Elena, now publicly acknowledged as Alessio's indispensable partner, was a force to be reckoned with in her own right. Her elegance and sharp intellect commanded respect in legitimate circles, while her undeniable influence over Alessio earned her quiet deference and a healthy dose of fear. In the underworld, she moved between these two worlds with an effortless grace that belied her past, her origins, and the constant danger that still lurked beneath the surface. Their love, forged in the crucible of danger and intensified by shared purpose, burned brighter than ever. Alessio, though still a man of formidable presence and quiet intensity, had softened around Elena. He sought her opinions, valued her insights, and openly displayed an affection and possessiveness that was both tender and fiercely protective. Their nights were filled with passionate intimacy, their days with strategic discussions and shared dreams of an even grander future, a legacy they were building together. Elena, in turn, found in Alessio a strength and an unwavering devotion that anchored her, giving her a sense of belonging she had never truly known. However, the world of power was never truly at peace. The absence of the Moretti family had created a vacuum beyond Chicago's borders, drawing unwanted attention. Whispers began to circulate, carried on the wind from distant cities, whispers of an old, established family from the East Coast, the Santino family, who saw Alessio's rapid expansion as a direct challenge to their own long-held dominion. They were old money, old blood, steeped in tradition and ruthless in their ambition, accustomed to unchallenged authority. They viewed Alessio, a man who had risen from relative obscurity, as an upstart, a reckless young wolf encroaching on sacred hunting grounds. The first signs of this new threat were subtle: an unexpected complication in an overseas shipment, a sudden dip in profits from a seemingly secure venture, a reliable informant going silent without a trace. Elena, with her meticulous attention to detail and her growing understanding of their network, was the first to notice the pattern, to connect the seemingly disparate incidents. "These aren't random occurrences, Alessio," she stated one evening, spreading a series of financial reports and intelligence briefs across his study table. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, a look of fierce determination on her face. "The timing, the targets, it's too precise. Someone is testing us, probing our weaknesses, trying to disrupt our flow." Alessio, who had been listening intently, his golden eyes scanning the documents, nodded slowly. "I've felt it too, a disturbance in the currents. The Santinos. They're more cautious than the Morettis, more cunning. They won't come at us with brute force immediately. They'll try to undermine us from within, to erode our foundations." He leaned back, a grim, thoughtful expression on his face. "They have deep roots, Elena. Connections in places we haven't touched yet, old loyalties that run deep." The realization sent a chill down Elena's spine. The Morettis had been a territorial threat, but the Santinos represented something far more insidious, a challenge to their very legitimacy, their future and potentially their lives. Not with street violence, but with calculated, insidious attacks on their expanding financial empire. This was a battle of wits, of strategy, and of enduring power. A few weeks later, the threat escalated. one of their newly acquired legitimate businesses, a high-end import-export firm vital to their global operations, was suddenly hit with a barrage of spurious lawsuits and crippling regulatory investigations. Documents were forged, witnesses fabricated, all designed to paralyze the company and tie up their resources. The precision and reach of the attacks were undeniable. The Santinos were not just testing. They were actively attacking. "They're trying to choke us economically," Elena declared, her voice tight with frustration as she reviewed the legal documents. "They know our strength comes from our ability to diversify, to legitimize. If they can discredit our legitimate fronts, they can cut off our funding, undermine our reputation, and expose us." Alessio clenched his jaw, his golden eyes alight with a dangerous fury. "They underestimate us. They underestimate you." He stood, walking to the large window overlooking the city, his back to her, his posture radiating coiled tension. "They believe their old blood, their ancient connections, give them an insurmountable advantage. They forget that new blood, fresh minds can be far more dangerous. We need to hit them where it hurts, Elena. Not with violence, not yet, but with a counter-strategy that dismantles their own power structure, legally and financially. This new challenge, rather than dividing them, only strengthened their bond." They spent countless hours in his study, poring over intelligence reports, financial statements, and legal documents. Elena's keen analytical mind, combined with Alessio's deep understanding of the underworld's intricate politics, and his unwavering resolve, formed an unstoppable team. They uncovered a vast network of Santino shell corporations, illicit dealings masked by centuries-old family names, and vulnerable points in their seemingly impenetrable financial empire. "We can expose them," Alessio, Elena announced one night, a triumphant glint in her eyes, pointing to a complex web of transactions on a digital map projected onto a screen. "Their offshore accounts, their tax evasion schemes, their illegal influence peddling in Washington. It's all here." It would bring down not just their criminal enterprise, but their legitimate empire as well. It would shatter their reputation and draw the attention of federal authorities they've skillfully avoided for decades. Alessio looked at the map, then at Elena, a profound sense of awe and fierce pride in his gaze. "You've done it, my love. You've found the chink in their ancient armor. This isn't just a blow, it's an annihilation." He walked over to her, pulling her into a tight embrace, his lips brushing against her hair. "They underestimated the architect of my new empire. They underestimated my queen." But even as victory against the Santinos seemed within their grasp, Elena couldn't shake a growing unease. The world of organized crime was a serpent with many heads. Cutting off one only meant another would rise, perhaps even more cunning, more ruthless. And the deeper she delved into Alessio's world, the more she realized the profound, unyielding cost of power, a cost that extended far beyond money and influence, touching the very fabric of their lives and the lives of those they held dear. Their triumph over the Santinos would be a decisive battle, but the war, Elena knew, was far from over. New threats would always emerge. And the question remained, how long could they truly maintain this delicate balance, this powerful, dangerous existence they had built together? The downfall of the Santino family was swift and devastating. A meticulously executed masterpiece of corporate espionage and legal warfare orchestrated by Elena, backed by Alessio's unwavering resources. The scandal rocked the East Coast, exposing decades of illicit dealings, crippling their legitimate businesses and sending key figures to federal prisons. Their ancient empire, once thought untouchable, crumbled into dust. Alessio's reputation soared, cementing his position as not just a ruthless warlord, but a brilliant strategist, a man who could fight battles on multiple fronts and emerge victorious. Elena, by his side, was recognized as an integral part of this triumph, her intellect lauded, her influence undeniable. Yet, victory in their world often came with a bitter aftertaste, a hidden cost. The nature of their success, achieved through exposing the Santinos to federal authorities, stirred unease among some of the older, more traditional factions in the underworld. It broke an unwritten code, a taboo against cooperating, even indirectly, with the law. While no one dared challenge Alessio openly, whispers of discontent began to circulate. Subtle signs that not everyone approved of their modern, unconventional approach. More insidious, however, was the personal toll. Elena found herself increasingly entangled in the darker aspects of their world. She witnessed the consequences of their actions firsthand, the shattered lives, the broken families, the quiet disappearances. Though she understood the necessity, the cold logic of their survival, a part of her soul recoiled from the brutality, the moral compromises. She sometimes questioned if the empire they were building, magnificent as it was worth the price, the erosion of their humanity. One rainy afternoon, a discreet message arrived for Alessio. Delivered by a trusted informant, a single, faded photograph of her father, Mikhail Petrova. Taken recently. He was alive, but looked gaunt, aged, imprisoned in a desolate, foreign facility. The location was vague, hinting at an undisclosed site in Eastern Europe. The message accompanying the photo was chillingly clear: her father was a pawn, held by a shadowy consortium of former rivals, now united in their distrust of Alessio's rising power and his unorthodox methods. They intended to use Mikhail as leverage to force Alessio into a devastating compromise, to destabilize his newly established dominion. Elena stared at the photograph, a wave of shock and raw emotion washing over her. Her father alive? And a prisoner, a victim of the very world he had introduced her to. A surge of conflicting feelings erupted within her: relief that he was alive, anger at his past mistakes, and a burning determination to save him, to bring him home. "Who are they?" she demanded, her voice trembling, turning to Alessio, who stood beside her. His face grim, his golden eyes narrowed in contemplation. "Old ghosts, Elena," he replied, his voice a low growl. "Remnants of the old guard, men who resent our progress, our new order. They see your father as a symbol, a way to chip away at my authority. They want to expose our vulnerabilities, to force us to break rank, to choose between blood and empire." The choice, for Elena, was agonizingly clear. Her father was still her father, no matter his past. "We have to get him back, Alessio. We have to save him." Alessio's gaze was unyielding, filled with a complex mixture of love for her and the cold, hard logic of his world. "It won't be easy. This isn't a simple rescue mission. It's a trap, designed to expose our weaknesses, to lure me into a devastating confrontation on foreign soil, away from my power base. They want to see me fall, and using your father is the most insidious way to do it." Despite his reservations, Alessio agreed. He saw the fire in Elena's eyes, the unwavering determination. He understood that this was not just about her father, it was about her, about their shared future. About proving that their new empire was not just about ruthlessness, but also about loyalty. About protecting those they cherished. The decision, however, came with a heavy, unspoken price. To retrieve Mikhail, they would have to divert significant resources, expose themselves to immense risk, and potentially weaken their position in Chicago, inviting new threats. The planning was meticulous, shrouded in absolute secrecy. Elena played a crucial role, utilizing her language skills and her growing network of contacts to gather intelligence on the remote facility, on the consortium's movements. She discovered a network of tunnels beneath the prison, a hidden escape route, and a corrupt guard willing to be bought. Alessio, for his part, assembled a small, elite team of his most loyal and formidable men, preparing for a highly dangerous, clandestine operation on foreign soil. Before they embarked, Alessio pulled Elena into a fierce embrace, holding her tight, his lips brushing against her hair. "If anything happens, Elena, if I don't return, you are to take command. Do not grieve, do not falter. Protect our empire. Protect what we have built. And remember, you are Volkov now. You are stronger than you know." His words were a chilling testament to the dangers they faced, a stark acknowledgement of the ultimate sacrifice. The rescue mission itself was fraught with peril. Elena, against Alessio's initial wishes, insisted on accompanying him, her determination unwavering. She was not just a partner in the empire, she was a participant in its battles. They infiltrated the remote facility under the cover of a storm, a symphony of gunfire and shouts echoing through the desolate landscape. Elena's knowledge of the layout, her quick thinking under pressure, proved instrumental in navigating the complex, booby-trapped tunnels and guiding Alessio's men. They found Mikhail Petrova in a dark, cold cell, frail and broken, but undeniably alive. The reunion was bittersweet, tainted by years of absence and the brutal circumstances of their reunion. But as Elena looked into her father's faded eyes, seeing a flicker of recognition, a tear of relief, she knew the risk had been worth it. She had saved him, brought him back from the brink. Their escape was narrow, a desperate fight through overwhelming odds. Alessio, a force of nature and battle, cut a path through their enemies. His movements precise and deadly. Elena, armed and surprisingly capable, fought by his side, her fear replaced by a fierce resolve. They made it out, bringing Mikhail with them, but not without losses. Not without bearing fresh scars. Returning to Chicago, exhausted but triumphant, they had indeed saved Mikhail. But the price was evident. Their resources were strained, their men wounded. And their absence had given rise to new anxieties within their ranks, subtle shifts in loyalty. The consortium of rivals, though thwarted in their immediate goal, had managed to sow seeds of doubt, to weaken Alessio's grasp, if only subtly. And Elena, holding her frail, silent father, felt the profound weight of the choice she had made. She had brought him back, but to a world he no longer understood. To an empire where he was now a silent guest, overshadowed by his daughter's rise. The echoes of betrayal from the past had resurfaced, and a new, personal price had been paid, transforming her not just into a queen, but into a warrior burdened by the complexities of love, loyalty, and the unforgiving nature of power. The return of Mikhail Petrova to the Volkov mansion was not the joyful reunion Elena had perhaps unconsciously fantasized about. Her father was a ghost, a shell of his former self. His mind fractured by years of imprisonment and torture. He remained largely silent, his eyes distant, lost in a past only he could see. Elena dedicated herself to his care, providing him with the best medical attention and a quiet, comforting environment, hoping to rekindle the spark she had seen in the locket. But the silence that hung around him was heavy, a constant reminder of the profound cost of their world and the unhealed wounds of her own past. Alessio, for his part, was respectful of Mikhail, recognizing his historical significance and Elena's unwavering devotion. He ensured Mikhail's every need was met, but kept him away from the inner workings of the empire, understanding that Mikhail was no longer capable of contributing, and more importantly, that his very presence could be a vulnerability, a symbol of old ways that Alessio was determined to transcend. The rescue mission, though successful, had indeed left the Volkov syndicate vulnerable. The diversion of resources, the exposure to external forces had created an opportunity. New, smaller factions, emboldened by the perceived weakening of Alessio's iron grip, began to test their boundaries, probing his defenses with subtle acts of defiance, small-scale hijackings, discreet encroachments on his lesser territories. It was a calculated, insidious challenge, a new generation of wolves snapping at the heels of the lion. Elena, now fully immersed in the strategic management of the empire, felt the pressure acutely. She worked tirelessly, analyzing intelligence, counteracting these small threats with surgical precision, applying the lessons Alessio had taught her. She became increasingly adept at anticipating their rivals' moves, at striking back with devastating efficiency, often using legal or financial means to cripple them without resorting to outright violence, a tactic she increasingly favored. She was a master of the chessboard, meticulously planning every move. However, the constant vigilance, the relentless pressure began to take its toll. The brutal realities of their world chipped away at her soul, leaving behind a subtle hardening, a growing weariness. She found herself making difficult, often morally ambiguous decisions, understanding that compromise was sometimes the only path to survival. The line between right and wrong blurred, replaced by the stark necessity of power and protection. One evening, as she reviewed a particularly grim report of retaliation against a defiant rival, Alessio found her in his study, her face pale, her hands trembling slightly as she held a glass of untouched whiskey. "It never gets easier, does it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, not looking at him. "The cost, the endless cycle of violence, of power, of fear." Alessio walked over, pulling her into his embrace, holding her tight, his strength a comforting anchor. "No, my love. It never truly gets easier. You just learn to carry the weight. You learn to make the decisions, to live with the consequences. Because the alternative is to lose everything, to lose what we have built, to lose each other." He kissed her temple, his lips warm against her skin. "But you are strong, Elena. Stronger than any man I have ever known. And you are building a legacy that will endure, a future that will transcend this violence. It was in the midst of this turbulent period, this new wave of challenges, that Elena discovered she was pregnant. The news came as a profound shock, a jarring contrast to the violence and danger that surrounded them. A life, fragile and innocent, growing within her in the heart of their dangerous empire. It was a miracle, a terrifying, beautiful miracle. When she told Alessio, his reaction was a mixture of stunned silence and profound joy. His golden eyes, usually so sharp and calculating, softened with an overwhelming tenderness she had rarely seen. He knelt before her, gently touching her stomach, a silent promise in his touch. "A child," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Our child. A new Volkov. A true heir to our empire." The news, however, brought with it a fresh wave of anxiety for Elena. Their world was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too steeped in blood. How could she bring an innocent life into such a place? How could she protect this child from the very darkness that defined their existence? The thought of her child growing up under the constant threat of assassination, of betrayal, filled her with a primal fear that superseded all her other concerns. Alessio, sensing her apprehension, held her close, reassuring her with a fierce, unwavering devotion. "We will protect our child, Elena. With every fiber of our being, with every resource at our command. This child will be the future, the bridge between our world and the world we want to build. This child will be untouchable." The pregnancy became a focal point for their future, a powerful symbol of their legacy. Alessio redoubled his efforts to legitimize their operations, to consolidate his power even further, to create a safer, more stable environment for their growing family. Elena, fueled by a mother's fierce protective instinct, applied her strategic brilliance to this new, ultimate goal, ensuring the absolute safety and prosperity of their unborn child. But the news of an heir, especially one born to Alessio Volkov and the daughter of Mikhail Petrova, did not remain secret for long in their world. Whispers spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of their remaining rivals, and even some within their own ranks. The heir represented not just a future but a profound vulnerability, an irresistible target for those who sought to undermine Alessio's rule. The stakes had been raised exponentially. Elena realized that the ultimate test of their love, their power, and their empire was yet to come. The life growing within her was not just a source of joy, it was a beacon, drawing both unwavering loyalty and unimaginable danger, forging a new, terrifying path for them all. The golden cage, now, would truly be tested not just for her, but for the innocent life she carried within. The news of Elena's pregnancy, while a profound source of joy and hope for Alessio and her, quickly reverberated through the complex, shadowy ecosystem of the Chicago underworld. An heir, a direct descendant of the formidable Alessio Volkov and the cunning Mikhail Petrova, was not just a personal milestone, it was a political event. A seismic shift in the balance of power. For their loyalists, it solidified the dynasty, ensuring a future for the Volkov Empire that extended beyond Alessio himself. For their rivals, however, it presented an irresistible target, a profound vulnerability that could be exploited to dismantle everything Alessio and Elena had painstakingly built. Elena's pregnancy became a period of heightened vigilance, a constant state of uneasy anticipation. The mansion became an even more impenetrable fortress, security measures tripled. Every shadow watched, every potential threat neutralized before it could even materialize. Alessio's possessiveness intensified, bordering on fierce obsession. He rarely left Elena's side, his golden eyes constantly assessing her, protecting her, reassuring her with his unwavering presence. He spent even more time in his study, not just managing his empire, but actively dismantling any potential threats, cutting off any possibility of danger reaching his family. He was ruthless, relentless, and utterly single-minded in his mission to secure their future. Elena, though deeply appreciative of Alessio's unwavering protection, felt the immense pressure of carrying such a precious, vulnerable life in such a dangerous world. She found solace in their shared vision for the future. A future where their child would grow up in a world less brutal, more legitimate. A legacy built not just on power, but on prosperity and stability. She immersed herself in planning and strategizing, in solidifying the legitimate branches of their empire, ensuring that their child would inherit a foundation strong enough to withstand any storm. She meticulously documented their assets, streamlined operations, and established impenetrable legal firewalls, creating a fortress of wealth and influence that would be almost impossible to penetrate. But the old guard, the remaining remnants of the Santino Consortium and other disillusioned factions, saw the heir as their final, desperate opportunity. They understood that striking at Alessio directly was suicidal. He was too powerful to protect it. But his most cherished possession, his ultimate vulnerability, his unborn child, that was a different matter. They began to orchestrate a final, desperate play, a complex scheme to abduct Elena and the child, using them as ultimate leverage to force Alessio to surrender his empire, or face an unthinkable choice. The first indication of this plot came from an unlikely source, Mikhail Petrova. In a rare moment of lucidity, his eyes suddenly clearing, he spoke a single, chilling word to Elena, basilisk. He then pointed to a faded tattoo on his arm, a serpentine creature barely visible. Elena, recalling her deep knowledge of ancient symbols, immediately recognized it as the emblem of a shadowy, highly secretive Eastern European organization, a group of assassins and information brokers known for their surgical precision and their ruthlessness. Her father, in his damaged state, had recognized a hidden danger that even Alessio's vast network had missed. The revelation sent a wave of icy terror through Elena. This wasn't a domestic threat. This was an international conspiracy, a professional, highly dangerous organization targeting them. She immediately conveyed this to Alessio, her voice trembling but resolute. Alessio's fury was a terrifying force of nature. Basilisk, he growled, the name laced with venom. They were involved in your father's capture, a mercenary group. They're trying to finish what they started. He understood the implications immediately. This was not about territory or money, it was about destroying him completely, by targeting his most precious possessions. The final confrontation was not a pitched battle in the streets, but a tense, psychological war played out within the walls of the mansion itself. The Basilisk agents, skilled infiltrators, managed to breach their outer defenses, their methods silent, deadly, and precise. Elena, now heavily pregnant, refused to be hidden away. She insisted on remaining in Alessio's command center, her strategic mind working tirelessly, interpreting data, providing insights, standing as a beacon of strength by his side. Her presence was a constant reminder of what they were fighting for. The climax came swiftly. A small team of Basilisk operatives, led by a ghost from Alessio's past, a rogue operative he had once trusted, managed to corner them in the mansion's panic room, a seemingly impenetrable sanctuary. The air crackled with tension. The metallic tang of fear and determination thickened the enclosed space. It was a standoff, a final, brutal test of their resolve. Surrender, Volkov, the lead operative, a scarred, cold-eyed man, sneered through the reinforced door, his voice amplified. Give us the woman and the child. Your empire can still stand, diminished but whole, or watch it all burn. Alessio's golden eyes, usually so cold and calculating, blazed with an inferno of pure, unadulterated fury. He held Elena close, his arm a steel band around her. Never, he roared, his voice echoing through the panic room, a raw, primal defiance. My empire, my family are one. You touch one, you face the full might of the other. Elena, despite the fear that threatened to consume her, felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. The ultimate test. She looked at Alessio, her eyes reflecting his fierce determination. In that moment, she was not just his wife, his empress, she was a warrior, a mother-to-be, ready to fight for the future she carried within. Using their combined intellect, Elena identified a flaw in the panic room's ventilation system, a hidden access point the Basilisk had overlooked. Alessio, utilizing this information, orchestrated a counterattack, sending his men through the hidden routes, turning the tables on their attackers. The ensuing battle was short, brutal, and decisive. The Basilisk operatives were overwhelmed, their leader captured, their plot shattered. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the mansion was secured, Elena went into labor. The birth was intense, painful, but ultimately triumphant. Their child, a healthy baby boy, was born into the heart of their empire, a symbol of hope, a new beginning. As Elena held her son, looking into his innocent, bright eyes, she saw not just a child, but the very embodiment of their legacy. A future forged in fire and secured by unwavering love and relentless power. Alessio stood beside her, his hand gently touching their son's tiny head. His golden eyes filled with an emotion so profound it bordered on reverence. He kissed Elena's forehead, his lips lingering. "Our legacy, my love," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Forged in fire, protected by our love. He will be a king, worthy of his name, a true Volkov." Elena smiled, a radiant, triumphant smile. She was no longer just the girl saved from death, nor merely the empress of a dangerous empire. She was a mother, a partner, a survivor. A queen who had helped build a future from the ashes of the past. Their love, tested by betrayal, by war, by the deepest fears, had proven to be the strongest force of all. The golden cage had transformed into a home, a sanctuary, a powerful dynasty. The journey had been perilous, but together they had carved out their destiny, creating a legacy that would endure. A testament to the undeniable truth, the Mafia boss saved her from death, then claimed her as his own, and in doing so, created an empire and a family that would rule for generations to come. If you've been gripped by Elena and Alessio's story, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button for more thrilling tales of love, loyalty, and danger.